All right. Welcome to Just Joking Podcast. I am one half of the Just Joking Podcast, King,
And I'm Joe.
and we have made it through to episode 9, brother. We are 9 shows deep, pimp.
That's crazy, man. It's
This is
crazy.
live stream number 2, man.
It
So you
is.
feeling good about, doing the live stream situation now versus the pre-recorded ones?
It's a different vibe. But I'm feeling it. I mean, I'd love some people to tune in and throw some questions and comments up and get the ball rolling.
Yeah, that'd be dope. Speaking of questions, comments, hey, if you are tuning in on YouTube, be sure to come in. If you have any questions for us, ask them in the comment section. Hit that subscribe button as we will be coming to you guys every other week on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. That was my radio voice. All right, Joe. So, taking a look at the topic, man, this is going to be a very serious topic. I think it's one that needs to be talked about. I'm not sure if it's talked about enough,
Yeah.
and that is suicide. But before we get into our topic, let's do our buddy check-in. I'll start with you, man. How have things been going with you since me and you last
Um,
had our last podcast?
Things have been good. I've been pretty mellow, which is nice. Got some anxiety and stuff like that. Just waiting on things to resolve in my life. But for the most part, things are good. Can't complain too much. How about yourself?
Same here, man. Same here. I've been extremely busy with some of the stuff that I've been doing outside of work, like my normal 9 to 5. My boss gave me some pretty good news about a job opportunity that came up here recently. So after we get done with this podcast, I've got another show that I'm running. And then after that show, I will be updating my resume and applying for this job promotion and crossing my fingers.
Nice, congrats. Good luck.
Um, thank you, thank you. Outside of that, man, something that I'd like to kind of bring up as well. Like I said, for the most part, everything's been good. But in one of our earlier episodes, I had talked about my daughter and how I wanted her to be the one that reached out to me more because she doesn't live with me, right? And I wasn't too sure if I should be the one to do that as the dad. But lately, and I don't know if this is something on her own or maybe her mom kind of brought it up. She's been calling me on her own, completely by herself every day now, and just
That's awesome.
telling me about her day, man. I tell you what, man, it feels real good.
Good. That's
Feels
awesome,
real
dude.
good.
That's fantastic.
Um, all right. So that's enough with the buddy check-in, man. Like I said, this subject is not an easy one to talk about, but it should be talked about. And it is our hope that by us talking about it, that maybe we can relate to somebody else that's out there, help somebody that's out there, or provide some type of resource to somebody that may have this topic on their mind, and it's suicide. So let me just ask you, because there's no easy way to ask this. Have you ever thought about or attempted suicide before?
Yes. Yeah.
Are you open to talking about it on our podcast?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was
Okay.
it was quite a while ago. And we've talked about like my past before on the podcast about like the early days of my diagnosis and stuff like that. Um, this is about 2006, I want to say. I had been back from Iraq for about a year, and in that time, I got divorced. I hadn't. I was no longer allowed to see my first child. Um, I was drinking heavily. I was isolated. I didn't have any friends or family because I also, at the same time, got PCS'd to a new location. So I was starting over again. I had no friends. I had no family. I was hundreds of miles away from the next closest relative. So I was in a really bad place, and I didn't really have anyone to talk to. Um, I had lost touch with most of the people I had been deployed with, um, be, out of choice, kind of. Like, it was one of those things where I self isolated.
Okay.
I mostly because I didn't know what else to do with myself. Like, I thought at the time I was worthless, I was useless. I thought that um, nobody wanted to be around me, or I was just bad to be around. I was just extraordinarily unhappy, and I was drinking really heavily at the time. I wasn't sleeping well, um, and it all culminated into this. Um, like, I had a plan, and I was getting ready to act on it. And I kind of like I want to say honestly it was a cry for help kind of thing. I made this like offhand comment, and my coworker at the time, she heard what I said, and she didn't think it was very funny because it wasn't. But it was just like this offhand comment, and she reported it to one of her senior leaders, and that's around the time when we go back to like our previous podcast episodes. That goes to the day that they put me into AA. They got me into group therapy. They got me to see a psychologist and a psychiatrist, and like they started putting me through everything they could put me through to get me to stop going where I was headed. So plan in place, ready to do it probably that night. Um, Made a joke that wasn't very funny, and because I think I really wanted somebody to pay attention. I wanted to feel like somebody gave a shit about me, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And because the way I was going to do it, it was going to look like an accident. So like my family could get my benefits or something like that, you know?
Gotcha.
So this is bad. It was not good. And I won't talk about exactly what it was because I don't want to inspire other people. Like I don't, and that sounds awful, but I just don't want somebody to take an idea and run with it, and then I feel responsible for what they did. So I don't want to share what the plan was or anything like that.
Sure.
But but yeah, that was a long time ago, but not that long ago, really.
Mm-hmm.
But it was around the time when I was starting to receive care and actually focusing on getting better and getting taken care of, you know.
Now, with that care, was it while you were receiving the care and everything, how did you feel about the work and the actions that you were doing to really turn things around? Can you recall how you felt in the moment?
Well, honestly, I was so hopeless, helpless. I was just a lot of things that were not healthy. And I think what struck me the most was how much I wanted someone to care.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt like somebody cared. It felt like somebody actually paid attention to me. It's really easy to slip through the cracks in the military, um, because we got a mission, we got things to do, and as long as you're performing, it's not always everyone's first nature to check on you because you're performing. You're doing what you're supposed to do. You're meeting the standard, and to them, that's 90% of the battle. So you don't always get the kind of attention some people need, because I was doing a really good job of pretending like everything was okay, or at least I thought I was doing a good job. They saw right through me. I just didn't know any better. But it felt good to feel like somebody cared.
Hmm.
because at that point I just felt like nobody did. Like I had those thoughts that like if I died today, nobody would care. Like nobody would show up to my funeral, nobody would care about me. Those thoughts ran through my head consistently. Like it was really bad. And I realized afterwards, like when I finally got healthy and I was taking care of myself and those thoughts weren't running through my head anymore, I realized that they were wrong. Those were wrong thoughts, but I couldn't tell the difference between a wrong thought and a right thought, you know?
Okay. When you got through the therapy, man, and got better, as you go through life and kind of hear about other people and their struggles, um, did you ever have somebody share with you that you may have saw something in them that goes, I know what that thought is, and were you able to help that person?
Actually, that's a funny story. Not a haha funny story. It's just a circumstance story. Um, Ironically enough, at this time of my life, when I was really down and depressed and miserable and thinking of taking my own life, I was actually teaching young service members about self care and health promotion. So I was actually teaching them about how to take care of themselves. Um, I was providing them resources for mental health and for physical health, and we were talking to them about if they needed somebody, if they needed help, to reach out to us. And it's crazy because, well, not crazy, but it's just a strange circumstance that there was a couple of service members who, after one of these classes, one of them came up to us. It was two separate occasions, but like on one of the occasions, one of the service members had some questions after the training, and we would always just stand there for like an extra half hour, 45 minutes, and just talk with these young privates who were going through school, first time away from home. It's all scary. And one of them talked to us, and she had a plan. She was gonna play it out like that day, and it just so happened on that day we had the class, and something we said during the class made her come to us. And my coworker, bless her heart, she was like, "Are you okay? Like is everything okay?" And after a few minutes of talking to her, we got her to open up and to tell us what's going on. And we got somebody to, I think actually my coworker escorted her to the clinic to go talk to somebody. And that was a positive outcome, but that was something that we we helped save somebody. Well, and it's crazy because at this point I'm drowning and I'm pretending like everything is okay. And maybe that's what that person saw. Maybe it's what we said. Maybe it's what that person saw. Like I just don't know, but I
Hmm.
know that we had a positive outcome by preventing this person from taking their life. And ironically enough, I didn't see it for what it was. Like I it wasn't until much later, like months, years later, that I actually was like, wow, like it's crazy. I couldn't, like I wasn't practicing what I was preaching. I was talking to these people to get healthy and to heal themselves and to be strong and admit when something's wrong. And the whole time I'm just drowning, not reaching out for a lifeboat at all, almost slapping it away whenever it came in my direction.
Hmm.
It's crazy.
Um, I'd like to share something from my side. So,
Hmm.
I have never thought about attempting suicide myself. And the first time that I had experienced this topic or this subject of suicide was when I was in the military overseas and had a really close friend who became really close to her and her family, and it happened as an adult, and
Wow.
I don't know if everybody thinks this way, But the reason why I'd asked that, previous question is, I wanted to know, is there something that I missed? Like, that was my
Mm,
very first question. Was there
mm,
something that I missed? And it hit hard for me as this person who, wasn't family, but a really good friend.
yeah,
Now, earlier in that day, um, they had reached out, had invited me and my ex-wife to dinner, and this person was a very jovial person, always laughing, always, smiling, having a good time, and we had just met that person overseas. Now, when you're stationed overseas, depending on where you're, stationed at, you can create and have a very tight knit community real fast,
hmm,
especially when you're on an island and you have nowhere to go.
yeah, exactly.
So this person became very impactful in my life. And when everything happened, like I said, she had invited me and my ex-wife to dinner that night. And it was as I was getting off work to go home to shower and prep. She lived right around the corner. We saw ambulance and fire truck and people from my unit around, were like, what's going on? And then I got the news. I was close to her husband as well. I'd say I was more close and friends with her than I was with him.
Yeah,
And coming from the side of, a friend of someone, um, that was rough, man. That was rough, and that's when that's stayed with me, you
yeah.
know. And some days, I'll find myself thinking about her, or there'll be something that'll happen, that'll come up, that'll just make me smile. And you're talking, this was over 10 years ago,
Wow.
over 10 years ago, man, and it's stuck with me. So on kind of the subject of time, being that, as you said, this kind of seemed like a life ago. Um, has it stuck with you since that time? Even though you've gotten help, throughout this time, have you had, some of the thoughts about how things felt when you've had some of your most recent lows?
Yeah. So it's difficult because with my condition, like when I go through depression, those thoughts can creep back in real quickly, real easily. Um, they're insidious like that. They just kind of get in there, especially when you're at your lowest. And a lot of it, in my opinion, and I wonder, and if other people feel this way, talk about it. Tell us what you think. But a lot of it for me, when I hit those low points, it's thinking about every day stacked against me going forward. It's not just like the moment. Like a lot of people, when they go through depression and they start thinking about suicide, they think of a solution because they can't see a way out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for most circumstances, there's always an end. There's always these tribulations can only last so long, for the most part. Like under most circumstances, except for something that's terminal or something that has no cure and never goes away. Those things I understand. Those never stop. Those never go away, or those become the ultimate end. But most of the problems in our lives, the things that bring us to that point of desperation, are usually temporary things. They're just really severe, really in the moment, and they're really hard to overcome. But ultimately, they go away. For those of us with something permanent, for me, it was always when I get to my lowest point, not just the moment that I'm in, but in every moment I knew that would come in the future.
Okay.
Like thinking about every day stacked against me going forward, like however long I lived, this would be my life forever. And while it's true to a degree, it's not entirely true because I'm not always going to feel that way every single day going forward for the rest of my life. So, and I really would love to hear people with long term conditions, you know, what you feel, what you think, how do you get past those dark moments? Because you'd inspire me, you can inspire somebody else who's going through the same thing. It would just be refreshing to hear another story. um, but yeah, that's yeah, it's it can get dark, man.
Um, so after you had gotten your help and gotten everything, and you met your lovely wife, which, by the way, thanks for the chili. I just
Ah,
finished the rest of it today. It was
nice.
fantastic. I
Good, good,
appreciate
good.
that. Um, did you guys ever talk about it? Did you ever have like a direct conversation with your wife that may I know she listens to this podcast, but did she ever know about that?
um i I know I had talked to her about being in that place before, because this is a conversation we've both had, um, because of where I've been, what I've been through, and she has her own journey and she's experienced her own things. So the conversation has come up. I think sometimes because of, well, mostly initially because of me and everything I've been through. I did want her to know, and I wanted her to learn about me and all the things that I've been through, but also like thinking about our children, growing up and the things that they're experiencing and stuff like that. Like, I worry that my children might experience some of the symptoms and things that I have. So it's a topic that scares me, because with kids, they don't really understand what's going on with themselves, especially now in these formative years, and they're developing personalities amidst all the chaos that the world brings. And it's just, so it's come up, it's come up a few times, and I'm sure it's a conversation we'll have again in the future. But yeah, it's definitely come up.
Okay, all right. I have some resources, and I think now would probably be a good time to
Yeah.
bring these up. And I'm going to bring this first screen up here, and we're going to go through the bullet points. And I like to kind of talk about what this guide is saying and see if, me and you both have some feedback that we can kind of bring to it. Let's see if I do this right. Boom. All right, I think this is big enough.
Yep.
So this resource I got from the VA's website, va.gov, and this one's called Suicide Prevention, a guide for military and veteran families. All right. Now, and some of the resources that I have is not just for veterans. I think that this could apply for anybody. But it starts out by saying, if you think a loved one is suicidal, you may be feeling scared and helpless, but you and other family members are often able to tell when a loved one is in crisis because you know that person best. And there are ways that you can help. So the first part about this in this guide, it says be supportive, active, and aware. It says be aware of the warning signs, know how to contact emergency help when needed, be supportive and non-judgmental, and stay involved. So let me ask you, if you were to be asked, hey, what's the veteran crisis line? I'll just say straight up, I don't know the veterans crisis line off the top of my head. I'd grab my cell phone real quick.
Mm.
Do you happen to know, besides 911, any of the services that are out there that can assist somebody if they were to ask you on the spot?
I don't know them off the top of my head, but I know where to find the suicide prevention hotline. I've definitely had it, and I've thought about using it before.
Mhm.
Um, I've actually used the self harm hotline,
Okay.
the text message feature. Part of one of my problems is that I would self harm.
Hmm.
Um, and I definitely used that feature, and it was good, because I was in a bad place, and I was kind of manic at the time, and I was going through like hyper anxiety, and the services these hotlines and these phone numbers provide is really amazing. And you might feel silly thinking about using it like I did at the time. I was like, oh, this is ridiculous. But I thought about all the work I had put in, and it's almost like being sober. You don't want to get back on the wagon or whatever. You don't want to start drinking again or using again. So I just said, you know what? Let me do this. Let me text them, and it was immediate. It was very immediate. Like it was just text and bam, they were already like talking to me. So I know where to find this stuff, and I know we'll probably share links or whatever to some of these on during the podcast or whatever. But they're out there and they're good. They have people who know what they're doing.
Good, good. That is definitely good to hear that these systems that we have, these resources, are impactful
Yeah, and they
and that
work.
they do help. Um, the question that I have here up in this bullet, it says be supportive and non-judgmental. That part right there, I'm a little bit kind of hung up on non-judgmental.
Well,
How can somebody be direct and try and be non-judgmental? Because I've heard of some
so
instances where people have tried to help, but it sounds very judgmental.
yeah, so that's the challenge. I think where sometimes we have a hard time is relating to the problems that the person has.
Hmm.
Like for some of us, the problems they might have might not seem like a lot to us
Hmm.
specifically. Um, but you got to remember that if that's the hardest thing they've ever dealt with, then that's the hardest thing they've ever dealt with. So to them, it's severe. It's monumental. They can't see past it. So you can't come at them like it's not that bad, you know. For them, it's really bad, and that's a subjective thing. It's not this universal difficulty that everyone experiences the same way. Like you and I, for example, have experienced combat and war very differently.
Hmm.
Um, does that devalue your experience by having not been on the ground or like in a hand-to-hand combat kind of scenario? Not that I have. Does that detract from your experience? Absolutely not. Are you allowed to have trauma from that? Absolutely, even though our experiences are different. And
Hmm.
that's something I think a lot of people have a hard time understanding. I think that is something that sometimes our military veterans have a hard time really understanding. Uh, hey, Bob, thanks for joining us, man.
Hey, Bob, thanks for joining.
Yeah, yeah, definitely don't kill yourselves. It's illegal. Um, but I think a lot of times veterans sometimes look at each other and they're like, "Oh, what you went through wasn't that bad," and
Hmm.
that's a dangerous statement because that's judgmental. Uh,
Yes.
and that's something we want to avoid. We don't want them to feel we don't want them to be on the defensive. We want them to be, we want them to really want your help. But if you put them on the defensive, they're going to be like, this person doesn't have my best interest at heart. This person thinks they're better than me or they're judging me. Numerous other things. So you really have to be supportive. It's really hard.
Hey, I agree. And we have Bob in the chat. First of all, Bob, thanks for joining. Both Joe and I are veterans as well. He stated that he is a veteran for the
for,
Marine
for the Marine Corps.
in
Thanks
the
for your
U.S.
service, bud.
Army. Hey, man. Hey, thank you for your service. Um, so in that first bullet, it talked about be aware of the warning signs, and then it
Yeah,
goes on here in the second point. It says know the common warning signs for suicide. There are sometimes signs that warn that a person has an increased chance of attempting suicide in the near future. And it says if you see one or more of these direct warning
yeah,
signs, your loved one needs to see a professional right away.
yeah,
So the first one that it lists out of these three, it says writing or talking about suicide, a wish to die, or death. And
yeah,
it gives quotes such as, I'd be better off dead. I have no reason to live. or everyone would be happier if I weren't here.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
I can't think of a time where, no, actually, I can think of a time where I've heard that before, but the person said it so cavalier,
Yeah.
so
So
jokingly.
nonchalantly. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. See,
Uh,
you got to understand at that point, that person is already comfortable with the idea. Like they've had this thought for so long that for them, it's just a statement,
mhm.
you know. And yeah, um, pay attention to those statements. Pay attention to those jokes. Those off, color jokes that you could just tell are coming from somewhere they shouldn't. Just always try to keep an eye out for those or ear out for those.
Okay. Um, so after kind of the communication part, the next direct warning sign says buying or storing things that can be used for suicide. And then it gives the purchase or collection of medications, guns and ammo, or other weapons, or searching the internet for methods of suicide. That
Yeah,
second bullet to me can be it like that's an interesting one because you have to be very intimate with somebody to you
to have
know
access.
to have access and then come behind them and see that they may have search that and go, wait,
Yep.
hold up. So definitely if you see something like that, take action. Don't wonder.
Yeah,
It's you know what, I'll bring this up afterwards. So
yeah,
then the third direct warning sign that it says preparing for their own death, and it talks about if they're making sure that their children, pets, and elderly parents will be cared for, updating wills and making financial arrangements to paying bills, saying goodbye to loved ones, and
mm,
giving away possessions.
yeah.
Mm.
Giving away possessions is one of the biggest signs. Like they're just like, you want that? You want my motorcycle? I'm not really gonna use it anymore. You know what I mean? Like it could be something small. It could be something big. It really just depends. But that is a sign to pay attention to. Uh, Bob, I was in the army. King here was in the Air Force. Um, I deal with PTSD as well. So, but just like you said, killing yourselves was illegal. So are drugs and hookers, Bob. So you know, we try to avoid those too.
Yes, sir. Yeah, those are all. There's one other person who had shared with me, and they were kind of going along those of just partying all the time. But this
Yeah,
is somebody that was always known for
that's just who
partying,
they were. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
but but they took their partying to like from 10 to 20,
yeah,
and but it was just he's just doing his thing.
yeah. Bob's funny.
Hey Bob,
um,
so I don't know if this is your first time joining in. We have this live stream every other Wednesday now at 7 o'clock Eastern. So we love a subscription if you find what we talk about useful. We try to keep the topics around veteran stuff and just life in general, man. So I'm glad that you found the YouTube channel, and thanks for tuning in. It means a
yeah,
lot.
yeah.
Um, so after the direct signs, it goes on to list other indirect signs,
Mm,
and just kind of like how we had just talked about
yeah,
substance abuse or substance use, hopelessness, which is one of the things that you mentioned. Purposelessness, that's a long syllable. I almost couldn't say that, but you brought that up. Anger. Could you ever feel, anger or rage at all?
so that was tough because that was tough because at the time I went through my divorce with my ex and she wasn't letting me see my kid. So I was very angry. I was very angry about the war. I was very angry about losing friends. So I thought I had a perfectly valid uh, reason to be angry. So for me, I couldn't see it. Like I couldn't see that as a symptom. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? But the recklessness and the risky behavior, definitely. I was definitely experiencing that. I was partying really, really hard, um, doing a lot of stupid things. Honestly, I got very lucky that I didn't end up on the wrong side of the law or anything like that. I did a lot of dumb stuff.
Got you. One of this next bullets, it talks about recklessness or risky
That's what I just talked
behavior.
about. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
Feeling trapped or stuck in a bad situation with no way out. And that's an indirect warning sign. And that's hard to see for
hmm
some of the people that I've talked to about this subject who have shared this with me. That's one of the common ones that I've heard personally.
yeah, yeah,
Social withdrawal, anxiety, mood
yeah.
changes. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll go
No,
ahead.
no, a lot of these like next ones like mood changes, sleep disturbances, guilt or shame. A lot of these are tougher to see. They're you have to be really close to somebody to really hear these things or see these things or to know these things. Like if it's a significant other, then yeah, that makes sense. You can see a lot of this stuff. But with like your friends that you only see them between the hours of like 6 and 5 in the afternoon, it's really hard to see these things, to know these things are happening.
Hmm.
So I think a lot of these indirect ones, a lot of them are more for like significant others or family members. Friends um, is a lot harder.
Hmm. Right here. So in this pamphlet, it goes on to give what you should do. It says if your loved one shows any of the direct warning signs or you're concerned about some of the indirect warning signs, it just straight up says take action. Call 911 or the veteran military crisis line at 1-800-273-8255. Press 1. It gives some tips and says that if there's any chance that someone might be injured, stay calm. That can be
Yeah,
hard. That can
yeah,
be
it's tough.
tricky. Take yourself and children away from any danger, and if possible, remove items that the person can use in a suicide attempt and get professional help.
Yeah, and it's tough. It's real tough. It's real scary if you think that's where the person is headed because you just don't know when it'll happen if if they're planning on it or whatever.
All right, it goes on to talk about treatment. Now, it says a person who is actively suicidal or attempts suicide often receives treatment in a hospital. When you got your treatment, that was in a hospital.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, let's see. When a patient leaves the hospital, the staff usually creates a discharge plan for follow-up care. So, question: after you were discharged, how involved was that follow-up care?
Well, I was part of like an IOP, an intensive outpatient program, which you can see
Okay.
right there. So it was a series. Everything was scheduled. Everything was a series of appointments. There was a medication plan, a treatment plan, a therapy plan, both singular, like provider in person, and then like group therapy as well. There was a lot. There was a lot. I'm looking at Bob's comments. Like I think war definitely changed a lot of us, changed the way we think, the way we feel. Sorry to hear about that episode, man. I'm glad that didn't happen. And you're okay. So you're diagnosed, which is good, and so you're probably taking medication and stuff like that. So how you feel about things definitely is affected by those medications. I take heavy medications myself, and it definitely changes how I feel about things and how I think about things. So, you're not alone, bud. And
Yep.
I'm glad you're getting care and glad you're taking care of yourself. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, absolutely. Um, Finishing up your treatment plan. How involved was that? How long was it?
This was over the course of about 6 to 9 months. But it wasn't completed because, like I said, so this was when I was stationed at Redstone Arsenal in Alabama. So I went through about 6 months of like really intensive care, AA therapy, several sessions a week, medication adjustment, and then I PCSed again, and this time went to Germany. And that's when I got the care that really turned my life around. It really helped me out, and it wasn't for lack of trying. Yeah, Alabama was great, Bob. It really was. But at Redstone Arsenal, it wasn't for their lack of trying. It just I didn't have enough time there, or the therapists and I didn't form that connection that I formed with the guys in Germany. The two doctors that I had in Germany really turned my life around. They really saved me. They helped me get stable on medication and everything. So yeah, it was intense, and it was a long time. It took me about total time, probably about a year to 2 years of like deep therapy and medicine and yeah, it was something.
Okay. So it ends with several resources here. Like I
Yep.
said, we're going to include all of these links and stuff in the description box for this on YouTube and our audio only version that we put on all podcast platforms. So I got that pamphlet or that PDF from the va.gov website. Now, one of the other things that I wanted to highlight here, there's a program which I was not aware of this until I started looking at this website a little bit more, and it says Coaching into Care. And it's a program that the VA has that if you are a family member or a friend who's seeking care or services for a veteran, I'm going to click this and see where it takes me. All right, so this was last updated, or the last news and announcement was back in February of this year. And
Bob, are you okay, man? Like
uh,
what? I mean, he says he needs help. Do you want to hang up with us and call 911 or call one of the hotlines, man?
hey, yeah, Bob, there's services out there, man. If you need to contact with somebody, you should definitely use one of these services right now, brother,
Yeah.
and seek help right now. This is, I'm not entirely sure how to read that comment, Joe.
I think he's messing with us.
Uh, Here's what I am going to say to you, Mr. Langham. Um, this subject is a really serious subject, okay? And we're two average guys that have came on to talk about a subject that's not talked about enough.
Yeah.
And some of the comments that you are sharing is definitely not in line with what we're talking about. And uh, so I'm going to take you serious on some things, and some of the other comments, um, I I don't have anything to say back to. So if you need help, we have provided the resources for you, and use them.
Yeah.
Do you have anything, Joe, to add?
No, no, no. Let's move on. If he needs help, he'll reach out to the people who can help him.
Okay.
Let's keep sharing stuff for the people who need it. You know.
Yes, sir. All right. So outside of veteran help, I've also included the National Suicide Hotline and their website. It's
Yeah.
suicidepreventionlifeline.org. I have called this number to run through it basically, and I wanted to see what it was like when somebody picked up. And when
Yeah.
they, called, I explained, I said, hi, I introduced myself. I said, I am not somebody seeking help. I am someone seeking an understanding of what this service provides so that I can help somebody
Mm,
who could use it. And the person who I talked to was extremely helpful. I think we chatted for maybe about 10 minutes,
that's cool.
and we just, like I said, just kind of had a conversation about what the numbers for and how I can go about assisting somebody if I see some of these warning signs that we have talked about, man, already.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so we had mentioned earlier in the conversation about how to talk with how to talk to children. Now this one's it's different. It says how to talk to a child about a suicide attempt in your family. Now this was before your kids were born, correct?
Yes. Very long time before they were born.
Now seeing some of the signs, this is a topic that this seems like it would. There was this Netflix show. I can't think of what the name of the show is, man, off the top of my head. But it was the one with the young lady in, I want to say it was
13
high
Reasons
school.
Why.
Yes, 13 Reasons Why. That show to me did a very good job of talking about the subject
Hmm.
and providing the resources and things like that. And for me, man, I don't know. Like I said, being that the first time that I had dealt with that happening, I was an adult. But with kids,
Hmm.
personally, for me, that's an extremely tough subject to talk about. I've never I didn't grow up experiencing it or having it. When you were younger, did you know anybody either at your school that had attempted suicide or did commit suicide?
So, um, where I grew up and the culture and the people that I grew up around, the concept of suicide was very foreign. Like you almost never heard about anybody committing suicide or attempting suicide. Um, and for whatever reason that is, so the idea of suicide was never a thing until after war, in my opinion. Um, so no, had never really heard about it, or it was never even a thing or an option.
Mhm.
Um, growing up, like even at the darkest times of growing up, never. I mean, that doesn't mean it wasn't happening, or that it's an impossibility. Just it just never came up.
Okay. Um, excuse me. This that number, see, it's 1-800-273 talk.
Hmm.
Okay. 8255. I didn't know that was a, what you call it, like a, not an acronym, but how they build numbers to have a meaning behind the
Yeah,
words.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
uh I, I think I would struggle if I were to have a conversation with a child about this topic. Do you think that this
Yeah.
is a easy topic to have with your child or not?
Well, from what I'm seeing, it looks like this is them explaining to their child that someone hurt themselves.
Mhm.
So it looks like it's already happened in these scenarios. Like I don't know that unless it was something my child was dealing with, I would bring up to my child.
Gotcha.
Like they'll eventually see this podcast. They'll eventually see and hear about those things. So maybe this is my way of talking to them. You know what I mean? And then we could sit down after they listen to this and we could talk about it if they want to, you know? But this is a medium they understand compared to the old days when, you know, you'd sit down and have a chat with your kids. Not that we don't try to do that, but nowadays they're doing more of watching these things, you know, they're watching TED Talks and Twitch streams. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe that's my way of reaching my kids. I don't know.
Okay. Oh man. So this was a very, very heavy hitting subject.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think if there was anything that we didn't cover besides talking about our own personal experiences and things and sharing some of these resources. Is there anything that you can think of that you feel like is important that we might not have touched on before we move on?
Just if you're having any of these thoughts or you're having any of these feelings, reach out to somebody, talk to somebody, even if it's your buddy, even if they're going to give you shit about it. Like, you need that camaraderie, even like, because I know us veterans, we're brutal with each other, we're merciless sometimes, but that's okay because that's a language we understand, you know. So reach out to your boys, reach out to your girls, reach out to your friends, um, you know, just talk, and you'd be amazed at how quickly those thoughts go away, you know. And look for the better side of things. Not everything sucks all the time. Remember, there's two sides to a coin. Just because you're on one side now doesn't mean you'll always be on that side.
Okay. All right. I don't think I have anything that I can add to that. That was very well said. Um, let's transition into our word of the day.
Word of the day.
So, what do you have for me, brother?
So this word of the day is temerity.
Temerity.
Yep.
Temerity. All right. So, temerity is similar to tumultuous. All right. So, temerity is when you have a situation that require that it merits something very like. I tried.
You tried. You
I
tried.
tried to. I have never heard of that word,
Really?
temerity. It,
I feel like that might be a more one of my more common words, like almost a softball word, but I don't think that people know the meaning of it when they hear it.
okay.
It is excessive confidence or boldness, sometimes considered audacity.
Hmm. Spell it.
Temerity.
Temerity.
We definitely use big words around here, Bob. I always throw a word every once in a while out to people to see if people know them.
Temerity. Okay.
Temerity. Yep.
And you said it was excessive boldness.
Boldness. Yeah. Or
Hmm.
audacity.
Okay. Yeah, I think I definitely do some very temerarious activities from time to time. I don't know if that's a word,
Yeah.
but temerity. All right. Wow. So we've gotten through episode 9 on what I felt like was a very serious subject.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make sure that we had talked about this. Again, the resources are out there. If you yourself or if you have a loved one that are exhibiting some of the warning signs that we had talked about earlier, or anything that you see in any of the resources that we're going to provide either on this YouTube channel or in the podcast, reach out to somebody and seek help.
Yeah.
Um, Joe, that's really all I have, man. As usual, I never really know how to end these things. So why don't you take us out?
Be good to each other, everybody. Take care of each other. And most importantly, be good to yourself. You know, like if that's not something we didn't really express as much as we could today, be good to yourself. Give yourself a break. You know what I mean? Cut yourself some slack sometimes. But when these thoughts happen, when these things happen, take them seriously and just be good to yourself. Be good to others.
Okay. All right. This has been episode 9 of the Just Joking podcast. Thanks for tuning in.